Hi kids, I'm First Alert Chief Meteorologist Derek Beasley here to welcome you to school at the zoo. WJZ and the Maryland Zoo have teamed up to help you and your family learn a little more about our great big world. It's going to be wild, so let's get right to our first lesson.
How are you today?
Good. How
All right, you ready? I am fantastic. Ready to have a good time?
Yes.
Ready to learn about some bears?
Yes.
Do you all know that learning about bears can help people too? Because just like people, just like us, they're mammals, right?
That's absolutely right. Do you all know what makes a bear a mammal or anything a mammal? They are warm-blooded. Scientists say endothermic. What else? They have fur. Yeah, most mammals have live babies. Hassan, did I forget anything?
There's one more thing. Everybody do me a favor and touch your back. And what do you feel in your back? Huh? That's right, a backbone.
So you're mammals, the bears are mammals, but would the bears eat us mammals?
I think it's possible. That's why it's always important to be bear aware. If you are ever in a forest where you could potentially see a bear, make sure that you A, have a friend with you, and B, if you see one, back away slowly.
But bears get really hungry, particularly when they're getting ready to go up and hibernate. So what do they eat?
So bears, we consider them omnivores. Have you heard of omnivore? Raise your hand if you've heard of omnivore. Awesome. So omnivores, they're going to eat both plants and animals. So bears eat a lot of different things. If you check out there, you're going to see some romaine lettuce, some fruits, some vegetables, but they do also eat meat. Something cool about bears is in the fall, they move into something called hyperphagia, which basically means they get really, 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 really hungry because they're going to put on a lot of weight.
How much weight do they put on?
They put on a lot of weight. So imagine something called Fat Bear Week. If you go and you look at Alaska during the height, right before it's time to go into hibernation, some of those bears can get so big that they can barely walk. They can weigh over 600 pounds. Incredible.
But for 4 to 6 months, for almost half a year, a bear would hibernate, a bear would sleep.
Yes, so hibernation, scientists sometimes call it in bears torpor, which basically means their bodies are going to slow down. So remember, they're warm-blooded, so their bodies are going to drop in temperature. They're going to stop eating. They're going to kind of sleep. They might occasionally get up every few days, stretch, move around.
How'd that go again? Okay,
Like
they're stretching and moving around.
All right, man.
Yeah, so stretch and move around a little. And what's fascinating about this is these girls, our bears, when they wake up in March, which is a slow process, they haven't lost muscle mass and they don't have blood clots or anything like that, which would be a concern for humans.
Hey guys, quick question for you. Yeah. Very important question. If you could sleep through the winter, would you do it?
So imagine you go to sleep all winter long, you wake up, your muscles would shrink. Your blood wouldn't be flowing correctly. But in the bears, they don't have to worry about that. So scientists are studying the bears to be able to discover, can we have a bear superpower and be able to sleep for months at a time? That way we can travel through outside space. Who knows one thing about space as it pertains to gravity? Is there a lot? Just yell it out at me.
None.
Huh?
Yeah!
That's right, you're weightless in outer space. And so if you're weightless, that means your muscles don't have a chance to work. So if your muscles don't have a chance to work, you can get super weak. And so scientists are studying bears because even though the bears don't use their muscles all winter long, they don't lose any muscle mass. So we want to be able to do the same thing for our astronauts. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it is. There's a lot we don't know, but there's a lot we do know. And let's give a round of applause to our zookeepers and educators today. Great job.
Anybody want a bear high five?
You know what? I couldn't get your attention.
What species is the brown bear's closest living relative? Is it the polar bear, the American black bear, the giant panda, or sun bear? Stay tuned for the answer.
You're watching School at the Zoo, brought to you by Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast. And now back to School at the Zoo, brought to you by Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast.
The polar bear is the brown bear's closest living relative. Let's head to our next lesson right now.
Welcome to School at the Zoo. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Meg McNamara. I'm the morning meteorologist at WJZ, so hopefully I get you guys ready for school. And I'm joined by Maryland Zoo educator. This is Sharon. Sharon, we're excited to get some of your expertise here, and especially because you brought a very glamorous prop with you.
Yeah, that's right. I'm excited to share it with you.
The lesson that we're going to focus on today is all about how elephants communicate. We have all different kinds of tools to communicate, and so do elephants.
Yeah, so elephants can communicate in some of the similar ways to what we do. So they might touch each other with their trunks. They might use their trunk like a hand or an arm. They also really rely a lot on smell. So I bet you all know where an elephant's nose is, right? Yeah, that's pretty obvious. It's their trunk.
Yes.
Right? They have an extra special kind of a second nose right inside the roof of their mouth. So they might smell something and then touch their tip of their trunk to the inside of their mouths to even get a better smell with that second nose. So some of the things that they might smell are just the ground around them, but one of my favorites is what I have in my hands. Are we ready to share that?
I think it's time.
I think it's time too. Anybody want to take a guess what this thing is?
Yes, go ahead. Just shout it out.
It is elephant
Oh,
poop.
yes!
You're right.
Oh, gross.
It's elephant poop. Would you like to touch it?
No, I would not. Absolutely not. I'm sorry.
It's actually okay that I'm touching this because this is from a long time ago, and it was specially cleaned and then sealed with a shellac. But one of the ways they might communicate is by smelling the poop left by another elephant.
Like what? I guess what would it communicate through that?
They might communicate that they're looking for someone to mate with. So if they're ready to find a mate when they're the grown-up elephants,
Okay.
that might be a way that they can find a mate for themselves. Yeah.
Okay.
One really cool thing about elephant poop is that they carry the seeds of their food along as they move along so that the seeds can regenerate. And it actually regenerates their food supply along where they poop. So it's a really cool way to do things. The poop's doing a lot of different things at one time.
Truly, I think that's the main takeaway of today's lesson. Yes.
Yes, one of the favorite things I like to say is, in nature, nothing goes to waste, even waste.
Yes, that's very true. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Sure,
we
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
My name is Valerie.
Hi, Val.
One of the keepers for the elephants here at the Maryland Zoo.
You here at the Maryland Zoo, you obviously have to be able to communicate with the elephants. The elephants need to be able to communicate with you, but if you don't communicate in the same ways, then how do you take care of the elephants? How do you talk to each other?
So the elephants, they can't speak English the way we do in their heads. So we have to give them cues to sit still, to accept medication, and we tell them that they're doing a good job by reinforcing them or saying yes by giving them a treat. And that tells them, I will do that behavior again. So that's important for their medical care, as well as exercising them and making sure they get the right diet.
Is there any way, I guess, for them to communicate if they don't feel well, if something is wrong with them?
A lot of that's going to be body posture and behavioral observations. So they will carry their ears differently. Their trunk can be very long when it's relaxed, or if they're very tense, it'll shrink up like a slinky. It gets very short. So those are some ways that we can look at their body posture to gather information if they're not feeling well or responding to something.
Okay, and then what about, I was reading that animals sense things that we can't even sense as humans.
Elephants can make sounds that our ears cannot hear, but elephant ears can hear, and they can hear it with the skin of their feet. There are very low sounds that need a special microphone, but elephants can hear it for a very long distance away from each other.
Wow, through their feet. Isn't that crazy? They communicate that way.
They are incredible species. They're very, very smart, and we're always still learning how amazing their communication is. So we always have to look for clues. If they're smelling something, how important is that smell? Was another elephant here? Or how are they carrying their ears today? Is, a truck going by? So we can gather a lot of information from them, and we're always learning that way.
Yes, and this is Anna behind me. How rude, I forgot to introduce the star of the show.
She is turning 49 this year.
Okay, amazing.
49 for her, it would be a similar equivalence to like a 75-year-old person.
Okay,
and
got it.
Just like people, they all age individually. Some people are doing different activities at that age, and some elephants are carrying that age differently as well. So it's very individual.
She looks great, right? I feel like she's a very healthy gal.
Very much so.
Okay, thank you, Valerie. We appreciate it. And of course, thank you guys for joining us, and hopefully you enjoyed School at the Zoo.
How many pounds of elephant poop does the Maryland Zoo scoop up per month? The answer when we return.
You're watching School at the Zoo, brought to you by Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast. And now back to School at the Zoo, brought to you by Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast.
On average, the Maryland Zoo scoops 65,000 pounds of elephant poop every month. Yuck! Now let's get back to the show.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm WJZ First Alert Meteorologist Steve Sosna.
And I'm First Alert Chief Meteorologist Derek Beasley.
And we're talking about climate change, how it impacts us.
And the penguins.
That's right. So we are here at the Maryland Zoo this afternoon to talk about the changes of the planet and how it's impacting not only us, but penguins. First, we need to know, what is climate change, right? Climate change is essentially the Earth warming up. It's called the greenhouse effect. If you've ever been in a greenhouse, you know how that glass on top traps the warm air in. Essentially, that's what the gases such as carbon dioxide are doing to our atmosphere. It's trapping the warm air in, causing temperatures to rise. What are the causes of climate change? Well, carbon emissions, and that can come from things like airplanes, from cars that you and I drive. It can come from factories, industrial. It can come from animals. Each type of gas warms the earth at a different rate. But the biggest gas problem is from carbon dioxide. The reason why? Its lifespan is a lot longer than a lot of the other gases. So once that carbon dioxide comes out, it's around for thousands of years.
Climate change has had some big time effects even in the state of Maryland, right? So talk a little bit about what climate change has done to parts of Maryland.
Yeah, so climate change is impacting us right here in Maryland. One way is allergies. Who suffers from allergies? You know, raise your hand.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of sniffling. We've had a lot of sneezing. You may have noticed it started in February instead of March. And so we're seeing longer allergy season. So that's one way, Derek.
Yeah.
Another way is we got some snow this winter, right? But we didn't get hammered like we normally do. Our winters are just not as impressive anymore. Severe thunderstorms. We've been rocked, we've been rolled here over the last year or so with severe weather. We tend to get more of those. And then rising sea levels. If you've ever been out on the Chesapeake, islands like Smith Island are actually sinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, one of the things about climate change is the fact that it also affects not only us, but it affects the animals and plant life around us. And I'm here with Jenny and Amanda. You take care of the
black-footed penguins, or African penguins.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the particular population that you have here.
So we have about 108 penguins here right now. That amount can fluctuate a little bit based on new hatchings and things like that. We have breeding season every year, so new babies coming in. But we have a very large, healthy colony here. We have the largest in North America and the second largest in the entire world, actually. Their native range, which is South Africa up the western coast to Namibia. We're seeing a lot of extreme weather events, just like you're talking about here in Maryland. So we're seeing increased heat and more tropical storms. and all of that is really affecting their ability to nest safely. So the adults are able to get into the water to cool off during hot temperatures, but unfortunately the chicks aren't able to do that. They still have their fluffy baby feathers, so that's not an option for them.
I see. And does it also affect their food supply?
Yes, so as you were talking of all the changes, the water currents are changing, and therefore it's pushing the food supply out further, causing those adult penguins to go further out to find the food, which leaves their chicks unprotected back at the nest. And so that has been a challenge for those baby chicks to survive.
Unfortunately, they've been moved to critically endangered.
Yes, that happened recently. We're down to about 10,000 breeding pairs in the wild now, unfortunately.
Wow, I think it's remarkable what you guys are doing here to try to preserve the population and educate folks on exactly how all this is happening. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're talking about the black-footed penguins that you have here at the Maryland Zoo, and hopefully folks can learn from this.
Coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to learn more about climate change and what you can do to prevent it from happening. How fast can an African penguin swim? Is it 5, 12, 15, or 20 miles per hour? The answer when we come back.
You're watching School at the Zoo, brought to you by Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast. And now back to School at the Zoo. Brought to you by Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast.
While people top out at 5 miles per hour, the African penguin can swim up to 12 miles per hour. Now let's head back to the Maryland Zoo to keep learning.
Well, I am Tim Williams, and thank you for coming out here and hanging out with us here in this habitat for the okapi. And we are going to talk about habitats. How about that? I have Mr. Hassan Bayan, and I have educator. She is an educator of all the animals. This is Miss Laura Newman.
Hi, friends.
And over there, that is Ascari. We're going to learn about a habitat. Do you know what a habitat is? Who knows what a habitat is? What is a habitat? A place where something lives. You're absolutely right.
Basically, anywhere can be a habitat for animals, whether you're talking about a mountain high in the sky, or the deep, deep ocean, or even a desert. All of those things can be a home for animals.
And Ms. Laura, speaking of this animal, the okapi, tell us about Ascari's habitat.
So Ascari lives in a very specific part of the world. He's only found in the Ituri rainforest. Rains all the time, super humid, really, really hot. And pretty much everything about Ascari is designed to be able to survive and thrive in that specific habitat.
And Ascari's habitat is in a place called the Congo. And we wanted to talk about that because the Congo is a very special place in Central Africa.
That's right. It's a very special place right smack dab in the middle of Africa. And it's a place where not only does Ascari live and all of his friends, but also an animal called the leopard. What are some of the things that you think helps him to live inside of his habitat?
He can hide with the stripes. This is a group of young zookeepers.
Yeah.
These are some smart kids.
They are very smart.
And I love that you specifically brought up the stripes because he lives in a rainforest with tons of trees that are super close together, and it's really hard for sunlight to get through the canopy of the forest all the way down to the ground. Kind of falls almost like in patches or stripes. These stripes that Ascari has are phenomenal camouflage. So he's able to blend in super well when he's in that rainforest.
What is he related to? He has a tongue that looks like a giraffe, but he has a body that looks like a horse and a giraffe and legs like a zebra. What is he related to?
Okapi are the closest living relative to giraffes. And if you especially look at the shape of his face and his head, that starts to become pretty obvious. They have almost identical skulls. The bones inside their head look almost exactly the same as a giraffe skull.
Look at him.
Showing off that tongue.
He's eating out of the tree.
Right on cue. That was perfect.
Giraffes do
Giraffes do that too. You're exactly right. Now, in a really dense rainforest, you don't want to be 16, 17 feet tall, right? Like a giraffe. So being a little bit shorter on the shorter side, really helpful for living in the rainforest. And that really long tongue is great for doing exactly what Ascari was just doing, which was wrapping his tongue around those leaves and pulling them into his mouth.
Can you show us? Oh, wow, he's over here speaking to you, Mr. Hassan. So,
Hey, Ascari.
and he wants to talk. I don't think you can talk, Ascari. And he's snorting. So
Yeah.
a lot of breath came out of that.
For sure.
Is that for a reason?
Yeah, it's for an amazing reason. So, animals communicate a little bit differently than we do. So what you saw with him using that strong puff of air was actually a way for him to tell the flies to get off of me.
So anything else you'd like our friends to know about the okapi and Ascari?
Yeah, for sure. So okapi are an endangered species. So that means there's really not very many of them left. And one of the big threats that's facing them is losing their habitat, is deforestation because of things like logging and especially mining, because there is a mineral that is deep, deep underground in the Ituri rainforest in the Congo that's used in making cell phones and batteries. And getting down to that mineral called coltan requires a lot of cutting down of trees, which is kind of messing up the habitat of the okapi, right? But there's an amazing organization that we partner with here at the Maryland Zoo called EcoCell that recycles old cell phones and old batteries, so we're able to reuse that coltan instead of having to keep going back to the rainforest, cut down more trees, and try and find more.
So when you think about how the world all connects, something you do here, like recycling, is affecting the okapi all the way in Central Africa. Anything else you'd like our friends to know, Mr. Hassan?
That I'm really happy that you guys came to visit. You guys have been great.
We've learned a whole lot today, and I hope you've enjoyed every minute of it. For WJZ and the Maryland Zoo, I'm Derek Beasley. Thank you for joining us for School at the Zoo. Class dismissed.